Meet the much bigger and much bolder far-right AfD group in the German Parliament. Their inaugural meeting and a chance for the newbies to say hello and for the old hands to take stock of their rapid rise. Just over a decade since the Alternative for Germany was formed, they're now the second biggest force in the Bundestag with 152 MPs.
We're excited about working together and we will see what the new parliament brings.
Today is also about deciding the fate of some controversial figures. Maximilian Krah was kicked off the executive board last year for playing down the crimes of the Nazi SS.
How did the meeting go?
The meeting used to, like I expected. I mean, it was business as usual.
Are you still in the party fraction? Of course, no?
Then there is Matthias Helfrich. He described himself as the friendly face of National Socialism or Nazism. He's back too. The return of these controversial characters, a demonstration of the AfD's sense of strength. Beatrix von Storck says they want to use that muscle to hold the next government's feet to the fire, especially on migration and economic reforms.
We are the ones to remind them of what people wanted, and people in Germany voted for a change in politics, and this is what we will address constantly.
Political opponents, however, are concerned that the AfD will turn the Bundestag into a spectacle. They're already notorious for their heckling. Take one measure of disruption, calls to order. That's when the Bundestag president reprimands rowdy MPs. Before the AfD entered Parliament, calls to order were rare. But between 2017 and 2021, when the AfD arrived, there were 49. And in the last period, there were at least 110. Of those, 2/3 were for the AfD. Von Storch rejects the criticism.
We really differ. We really want something else, and they have just lost the capacity to have a real debate.
Even though the AfD is going to be in opposition, and even though it's been sidelined by the other parties, the AfD is determined to be the centre of attention, one way or another.
For more on this, I am joined now by DW's chief political editor, Michaela Kufner, who joins us from the Bundestag, the German parliament. Michaela, viewers just saw that report on the AfD. Give us a sense again how different the German parliament looks now.
Well, the far-right AfD is a much more forceful voice. It's louder. We learned today that they are willing to use the limited powers that they have. And one of them was just to kick off this first session of the new parliament to question the fact that the presiding president was the most senior MP and not the oldest MP. The oldest MP would be a founding member of the far-right AfD party, Alexander Gauland. Instead, we heard from Gregor Gysi, who's been in parliament for 30 years from the left party. And here the AfD is crying foul, and it continues to complain its isolation. At the same time, because other parties simply don't want to cooperate with it, at the same time, it is using any means, any democratic means it has to raise its voice, and that's exactly what happened. So they may just make up over 20%. At the same time, they are a loud voice, and you can expect them to continue to want to drive the political agenda, as they have done successfully in the past, particularly of the issue of migration.
Of course, the election was 1 month ago, and still there is no new government. Why is it so difficult to build a new government, or is this just par for the course?
Well, first of all, this is not unusual for Germany. Germany has gone for months without a new government following elections because coalition talks can drag on. That is because the German election system binds in as many parties as possible, which have to make up more than 50% of the seats here in Parliament. So it's not a winner-takes-it-all system. And the last time round, we saw a three-way coalition, which failed spectacularly. This time, we have two parties parties speaking with each other. The winner of the elections, the conservative CDU-CSU, with the likely soon Chancellor Friedrich Merz at its top, and the Social Democrats of the departing Chancellor Olaf Scholz, who will remain in a caretaker position until the new Chancellor is elected. So during this period of transition, there is maximum stability also inbuilt in the system, but this could take until Easter, potentially even longer.
Michaela, let's talk for a moment from a global perspective or context. How will Germany's policy change under the leadership of new Chancellor Friedrich Merz?
Well, first of all, Friedrich Merz kicked off with a U-turn on what he promised. He promised no new debt. Now Germany is taking on probably around €1 trillion in fresh debt to finance infrastructure, but also to bolster defense spending. And those will be the key policies very much by definition, simply because the cash for that is now on the table, and the negotiation on how exactly to spend this money could prove difficult with the Social Democrats, who don't want to see cuts in social spending.
Conservatives and Social Democrats are working on building a coalition. What issues are proving to be the most difficult on which to find compromise?
Well, looking from the outside, it seems to be once again the promise by the likely next Chancellor Friedrich Merz that he wants to be able to reject people at the border if they have no chance of claiming asylum here in Germany. The Social Democrats here see a breach of European law, so that is something where they seem to be pretty much stuck. But the underlying issue will be how money is spent and how much a structural change you will see, not just in the budget, but also in cutting red tape and bureaucracy. I've spoken to senior figures in the Conservative camp who fear that the Social Democrats might not prove to have the same interest along those lines. And that's where I would expect them to get pretty stuck pretty soon. But this is Germany after all. They are condemned to be successful because there's an awareness across the board that there's maximum pressure for Germany to actually get going at that new government, that new chancellor, to become up and running and take a leading position here in the European Union.
DW's chief political editor, Michaela Kufner. Many thanks, Michaela.